Let me begin thanking the organizers for inviting me to participate in this important conference on a theme that is absolutely crucial to our lives and to law, which is my area of expertise. Especially my gratitude to the Dicastery for promoting integral human development and the Pontifical Urbaniana University, the two main hosts of this conference. My session is on governance and responsibility, an area, of course, that is important for law, in which law plays a significant or central role. I will begin with the legal dimensions of water, and we could spend probably a full day just analyzing the different aspects of water vis-a-vis legal systems of the world. But it's important to mention only, for the sake of time, that water has always been a subject of any legal system, from the most ancient ones to the most modern ones. And in contemporary legal thought and legislation, there are two aspects, both of them covered by the panels or sessions of these events, that I would like to highlight. First, water as a human right, and I will not discuss this aspect in my presentation. This will be dealt by other speakers. And water as a common good essential to life. In fact, this is an expression used directly by the organizers in the introduction of the event. I will also bring in the role of judges, and especially, to me, one of the most relevant documents prepared by judges recently, the so-called 2018 Brasilia Declaration of Judges on Water Justice. Water is a common good, and water is essential to life. And here, I think we could not begin a legal discussion or analysis without first mentioning aspects, even if just fragments, of Laudato Si, which to me, those fragments, and I'll mention just three, are crucial in understanding the ethical and spiritual foundations of the legal systems that we have in place nowadays in respect to water. The Holy Father in Laudato Si expressly states, and I quote, "the conviction that everything in the world is connected," unquote. He also says that we live in a world of water poverty, and we are going to come back to that concept later on. And my third fragment from Laudato Si states, quoting, "Fresh drinking water is an issue of primary importance since it is indispensable for human life and for supporting terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Sources of fresh water are necessary for health care, agriculture, and industry," unquote. So what Pope Francis is stating is that everything in the world, in the planet, is connected, that water is at the center of this mosaic of connections, and that in spite of everything being connected and water being all over, we live in a world in which his term, we still have a large amount of water poverty. Along the same lines, the 2018 Brazilian Declaration of Judges on Water Justice states, I quote, recognizing that damage to water resources and related ecosystems and deficiencies in water service provision disproportionately impact vulnerable people and groups, including women, children, the elderly, the disabled, indigenous peoples, and minority groups, unquote. So it is as if the judges were directly borrowing from Laudato Si in respect to, on one side, this concept of water poverty, on the other side, the notion that water poverty affects the most vulnerable people in society. The basic tenets of the legal protection of nature and water, and if you will, the nature of water, are many. I don't have the time to explore them. But I think it would be, at least in this short few minutes I have, it would be relevant to stress a few of those basic tenets. First, that although water is connected with everything, the legal system does fragment everything for the sake of systematization and making the work of the legal profession, especially judges, easier. Second, that the legal treatment of water should be one based on risk and not on damage. And that's why the emphasis is or should be on prevention and precaution. And that's also why the Judges' Declaration of 2018 alludes to the principle in dubio pro aqua. It says, and I quote, consistent with the principle in dubio pro natura, in case of uncertainty, water and environmental controversies before the courts should be resolved and the applicable laws interpreted in a way most likely to protect and conserve water resources and related ecosystems. This is principle number 6 in the 2018 Brazilian Declaration, specifically addressing the in dubio pro aqua principle. My own court, the National High Court of Brazil, which is a mix of Cour de Cassation and Conseil d'État, has decided many cases dealing with scarce water resources. And in one of them that I quote, it stated, in metropolises characterized by high population density, the value of water rises in the face of greater scarcity, which ravage cities in general and is further aggravated by climate change. These resources are already insufficient to meet the needs of those with water, let alone those millions still without water, the poor and the marginalized, excluded from a service so vital to the dignity of each human being, unquote. It's almost as if we were borrowing directly in the court from Laudato Si. Also, the Brazilian Declaration mentions the ecological function of property, and this applies to water, because water is related to all functions of property rights. And I, in my overhead, quote principle number 2 of the Brazilian Declaration. My last point is on we judges and water. And to me, I think in conclusion, we can say first that in times of climate change, no source of water, springs, glaciers, wetlands, should be destroyed. This is inferred from existing legal systems, but it's also inferred from ethical and rational rules that we take for granted as part of being civilized. Second, that judges should focus on the water basin and not just on a fragment of a river or lake. And this is difficult because we judges work on specific jurisdictions. So we fragment a whole river basin for the sake of the administration of justice. Furthermore, special attention should be given to the linkage between flora coverage and water. The mighty Amazon River would not exist without the mighty tropical forest that we call the Amazon. Finally, in urban or rural natural resources cases, put water at the center. Water is at the beginning, at the center, and at the last station of what we call the environment. And the protection of the environment begins with water and certainly ends with water. I guess that's the message of this conference that is happening today. Many thanks.